Hey folks, RPG day 8. I'm finally caught up. Today's question is, what is an RPG that is good to play for a session of 2 hours or less? So to me, that means we're looking at a system that is easy to understand, explain, and play, and run for that matter, for a short 2-hour session. And for me, hands down, that's the Fantasy Trip. Designed by Steve Jackson Games back in the late 70s. It was a expansion to their Advanced Melee and Advanced Wizard games, which were these little micro games that were essentially little mini war games. But they were all on the individual level, kind of like what Gary Gygax is doing with Dungeons and Dragons at first, bringing an individual level out of a war game level kind of play system. With the Fantasy Trip, you've got 3 statistics: strength, intelligence, and dexterity, and everything's based off of that. You start off basically with 10s in those things. You're rolling 3d6, basically for everything. So you got a nice bell curve. It's beautiful, rather than a straight, d20 line. And excuse me, the most complex part of the whole system are the skills and spells. Well, you think spells, obviously, anyway, right? But it's all written out there, and they're all limited based upon your intelligence. So if you've got a low intelligence, which means you don't know a lot of things, not just that you're not very smart, there's only so many things to pick from. And as you get higher intelligence skills and spells, for that matter, you get better effects. But you also have other things that get involved. For example, there's a skill, it's an IQ 10 skill called fencing, which allows you to do certain things with a sword. One of those things is the fact that the way the combat designed is certain rolls are automatic hits, 3 or 4 or 5. Certain rolls are automatic miss, 16, 17, and 18. Well, when you're using the fencing skill, it changes that automatic hit and that double damage hit and that triple damage hit span. So it's a pirate. So you'd actually have to have those numbers written down somewhere to keep to reference. But it's very clean, very simple system. I love it. In fact, I dirty it up all the time. One of the first things I do is the armor. The armor, a shield stops 1 or 2. And armor protects 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you can get a 5 in there with plate. But the damage that things do are all based upon your strength. So if you got a strength 12 guy, he's using a heavy broadsword, it's doing 2d6 damage. That's an average of 7. If you're wearing leather armor, you're stopping 2. If you got a shield, you're stopping an extra 1. That's 3. So that's 4 points of damage taken every round, and you've got 10 to 12 hit points. After 3 hits, you're out. Really deadly. So the first thing I did was modify the armor more along the lines of RuneQuest. But I did like the fact that weapons were doing so much damage. I actually went through and had to tweak with that a bit too to balance out, as I understand, weapons would be doing. But if anybody, those few who know me know I hate play balance because life's not fair. But that's my answer for a quick 2-hour session, the Fantasy Trip. You can go over the rules really quick, build a character very quickly, and start playing. And speaking of playing, when I was in Okinawa, I found this company online called Dark City Games. And no, Dark City Games not paying me anything for this. But he has developed the Legends of the Ancient World. That's his system, which is pretty much Fantasy Trip. He's made a few tweaks here and there on skills and leveling up and that kind of thing. He's also changed the experience point system drastically. But that's just how he did. But he also, the early days of the Fantasy Trip, we had, the Death Test 2, Grail Quest, a bunch of pre-programmed micro games, these little booklets that were your choose your own adventure kind of stuff. You start off on number 1. It says, okay, you're at crossroads. You go north, south, east, or west. And depending upon which direction you wanted to go, you went to that number. You go to that number, and it says you run into the troll, or you run into the witch, or whatever. Which, being in Okinawa, pretty much by myself, I got to play solo that way. It was great. I loved it. In fact, he had like 12 different fantasy modules out, and I bought them all. And he wrote me a little thank you letter afterwards saying, hey, thanks for buying all this stuff. It's great. But it's really cool because these little pre-programmed adventures, this is one of them, the Crown of the Kings, which my son and my buddy Grant and I did go through. I ran it for him. But we actually did this one just in one afternoon. I don't think it was 2 hours, but it certainly was not more than 4. I can tell you that for sure. But they come these great little combat maps for you and pre-designed minis, these little flats. Here's a dragon. Well, this is a dragon too, smaller one. And then individual people. I mean, it's very simple, it's cool, and the fantasy trip. Very simple system. There is a place online that you can go to get a copy of the rules. They make you sign a little form saying you're using it for your own personal use kind of thing. But man, I think Steve Jackson really did a disservice by leaving the fantasy trip and going to GURPS. But, that's my opinion. But day 8, simple RPG system, 2-hour session, the fantasy trip, or TFT as we call it.